video is actually inspired by a fellow content creator who I admire a lot. His name is Rafael de Furia. I'm going to put a link to his channel up here. And actually he was the first person that interviewed me on YouTube before I started my channel. And I know a lot of you discovered me through him, which I'm very thankful for. But essentially, the reason I'm talking about him is because I came across some of his content this week where he was talking about expats who complain. And I actually agreed in part with what he said, but also I wanted to explore this topic because I do think that complaining has a very bad reputation when it's linked to expats. And I do think as well, you kind of feel, do you have a right? Are you qualified enough to complain about a country that's not yours? So that's what we're going to talk about today. Let's get into the video. Okay, so first of all, I want to talk about the word complain. Complain has a real negative connotation behind it, but I actually think that it can be the Kickstarter for something amazing if you use what you're not happy about in the right way. Now, unfortunately, a lot of expats don't, and you only have to spend a small amount of time in some expat groups on Facebook to see this for yourself. A lot of expats will mindlessly rattle off all of the problems that they're facing, all the difficulties about life here in Italy, without really listening to any advice or solutions that are given to them, or even really objectively looking at the situation to see what they could perhaps themselves do differently. And so I think when we talk about complaining in that sense, yes, I don't think that we do have a right to complain in that sense, because we have chosen to live in this country, right? We have chosen to be in another country, to set our lives up here. And it is true, you can't expect the people in another country to cater to you just because you've stepped off the plane and have arrived in Italy. So in that degree, yes, that kind of complaining is only ever going to lead to a negative outcome. However, I do think that it is healthy to talk about your problems that you're having. It is healthy to express any difficulties that you may face. And actually, it's really, really important. I think the problem is that we all look at those negative aspects of complaining and then we kind of feel guilty or bad if we want to express something that we're going through that isn't necessarily a positive experience. But it's really healthy for your mental health as an expat to express how you feel about a situation if you're going through a difficult period, to actually reach out and get some support for it. And I think, you know, that in my mind isn't a negative complaint. That is you expressing that you're having difficulty and then trying to find a solution or looking at how you do things to improve your situation. And that is where complaining can actually lead to a more positive outcome, as opposed to just people who complain just to whine and moan about life. Other people complain to actually try to find a resolution or seek some kind of comfort in their situation. And so I think if you look at complaining in those two pots, it becomes a lot easier to distinguish when is the right time to complain and when isn't. And I think as an expat, it's super important to remember that you absolutely have a right to look at the negative and positive aspects of a country. Just because you have chosen to live in another country doesn't mean that you are never able to talk about what's wrong with it. Like, I do share some negative aspects of Italy on this channel, but I also balance it with the positive aspects because I share the reality of life in Italy. Life in any country is never 100% roses and flowers. Like, there are always going to be some problems and difficulties, but if we don't talk about them, then people aren't aware of them, and then when they move to Italy and experience them, that is when the wave and the tsunami of complaints begins. And so this is why I actually believe it is super important to share both viewpoints. But even I on this channel, sharing both viewpoints, receive criticism from people saying that, you know, I don't have the right to complain about life in Italy. I come from London, I'm coming in, taking over with my Anglo views. It is what it is. You are never going to please everybody. I've understood this pretty much from day one of my YouTube journey. But the one thing I will say is that if you watch my videos, you understand I always try to give you a balance because it's so important. And it's so important to you as the viewer to understand what life is really like here, so that when you do move here or visit here, you have a more realistic expectation of, which means no doubt you're going to have a much better experience, whether it's a holiday or a long-term stay. So I think it's just really important to be clear on what complaining actually is. The negative form of complaining is, as I said before, those expats who just mindlessly complain about life without ever doing anything to change themselves or their situation. But then the other form of complaining, when it's a point of somebody actually needing to express something difficult that they're going through and to just seek some help or some guidance, that is something that can lead to a much better outcome in the long run, and that is something that needs to be supported and nourished, because it's not complaining with no positive goal in mind. It's complaining because you want to change what is going on around you for the betterment of yourself and for other people. So I wanted to record this video because I feel quite passionate about this. I think it's not good to think that you come here and you have to stay silent just because you're a guest in another country. I think it's useful for you to understand the direction and nature of your complaint and how you personally can take responsibility for managing the situation, because essentially the responsibility always begins with you personally. And just this really. So I hope that this video is a little bit of reassurance for some of you who are thinking of moving here, who have seen lots of content about people complaining and have got yourself into a bit of a state about it. Don't. The most important thing to remember is try to always look at yourself and look at how you do things and how you can improve your situation and take some personal responsibility, because there are many things that are out of our hands, but essentially the more personal responsibility you can take for trying to improve and change your situation, the better your life experience will be here in Italy overall.